In the entertainment business, sibling acts have always brought in big audiences. From the Bee Gees to the Jonas Brothers, even the Blues Brothers. But no sibling act in history has shared a bond tighter than the early 20th century performers Jean and Jacques Libera.
Coming out of the 19th century and going into the early 20th, sideshows, circuses, you name it, entertainment is really taking off in a very new way.
Of course, then you have Coney Island, which has sword swallowers, fire breathers, people walking on broken glass, any number of unusual and bizarre and strange performances.
But perhaps the strangest attraction is known as the double-bodied man.
So Jean steps out. He's dressed immaculately in a tuxedo, looking good. He has a shawl, though, that's draping over a part of him.
What's underneath is what makes audiences gasp and even faint.
Jean has another person coming out of his abdomen.
His name is Jacques, and he's Jean's parasitic twin.
The incidence of parasitic or vestigial twins is really rare, literally 1 in a million. They form very similar to how identical twins form. There's a moment when the fertilized egg splits into 2 complete embryos. But in the case of vestigial or parasitic twins, that split is incomplete. Because conjoined vestigial parasitic twins often share organs with each other, trying to separate them surgically would have probably killed them both.
So for Jean, things are quite difficult because Jean, for all intents and purposes, is a completely normal human being, but Jacques, on the other hand, has a very rudimentary nervous system, so there is no consciousness and there is no conscious or voluntary movement.
As Jean would find out later in life, Jacques' head is in fact embedded within his abdomen.
And it's only approximately 6 centimeters in circumference. With a skull this small in size, Jacques would not have any kind of consciousness or any awareness of what was going on.
In that era, it's pretty hard to find a job when you have the condition that Jean Libera has with his brother Jacques coming out of his abdomen. And pretty quickly, he's drawn to the life that most people of massive physical difference are drawn to, the circuses and sideshows.
Soon, Jean and Jacques are performing around the world, amassing a fortune and dazzling audiences.
Audiences are both thrilled and terrified to see it, especially when Jacques actually moves. This is unique, it's terrifying, it's all sorts of different emotions all at the same time.
But in reality, given how underdeveloped Jacques' brain is, these probably weren't conscious movements, but probably more reflexive.
Yet somehow the most shocking aspect of their unbelievable life is how normal Jean is able to make it.
He's able to meet a woman, they fall in love, they even have children.
What's really remarkable is not his success as a circus performer, but the fact that he's walking around with an entire person attached to him and he figures out how to be normal. I think that's amazing.
Unfortunately, not every sideshow performer finds their happily ever after. Consider the extraordinary tale of Julia Pastrana, which begins in 19th century Mexico.
A group of herdsmen are out looking for their cattle. They end up in a cave and they find a young mother. She has a baby, and the baby is very strange looking.
They realize something pretty quickly about the child. She's covered completely in hair, just like a little wolf.
They learn that her name is Julia Pastrana. Her mother has been hiding her for 2 years because of a myth in the region, the Nawali.
So when Julia is born and she's covered in hair, this feeds right into the idea of the Nawali, shapeshifters, a concept that goes back to pre-Columbian Mesoamerica. So the village is terrified. They're afraid that she's a shapeshifter who can turn into a werewolf.
The herders take pity on the situation. They bring the mother and the child back down to the city. But Julia Pastrana's mother dies, and she's placed in an orphanage.
Soon after, Julia is adopted by the governor of Sinaloa, Pedro Sanchez,
Governor Sanchez takes her and educates her. She learns how to speak English and French in addition to Spanish, and he trains her voice. She develops this beautiful mezzo-soprano voice and is in fact very captivating.
Regretfully, the governor's intentions are not the greatest. Really, he's investing in Julia in order to make her into a sideshow.
In 1854, the governor sells the 20-year-old Julia to a promoter who takes her to New York.
So now Julia's in the United States, and she catches the eye of Theodore Lent, a showman who knows how to make real money off of her.
Proving himself a master in 19th century clickbait, Lent advertises Julia as the ugliest woman in the world, Bear Woman, and a particularly cruel moniker, Baboon Lady.
The audience goes expecting to see this beast woman, and instead, Julia is cultured and cultivated and charming. And she puts on a beautiful show. She sings, she dances, she is well dressed, and Lent realizes he has a winner.
He even takes their relationship to the next level by marrying Julia.
The crowd show up, the money's pouring in. Theodore now basically has all the control he needs and wants.
Soon the newlyweds are touring the world and selling out shows.
Lent is not in love with Julia. Lent is in love with money, and he doesn't want anyone getting a peek at Julia unless they've paid, so he makes her wear a veil whenever she's in public.
Following Lent and Julia's marriage, eventually she's pregnant, and she gives birth to a son in Moscow. And unfortunately, the son is dead within a few days, and Julia, because of difficulties of the birth, is dead within a few days as well.
Shockingly, Julia's story gets even more unbelievable.
Lent, being every bit the monstrous showman that he is, decides that he must keep the show going. So the way to do that, of course, is to have Julia taxidermied along with his and her infant son.
Lent continues touring with the bodies until he passes away in 1884.
This still isn't the end of Julia's story. Her body is passed around from sideshows to museums for more than a century.
It's not until 2013 that finally, through some activist efforts, she's returned back to her native Mexico and laid to rest. And so finally, some very long overdue dignity is restored to an at-rest Julia Pastrana.
Perhaps no world is more full of fantastic beings than the one created by J.R.R. Tolkien in Lord of the Rings. And the hobbits might be the most beloved of all. But what if these lovable little heroes weren't just a legend?
It is 2003, and Australian archaeologists are excavating caves on an island called Flores, east of Bali. And they come upon a strange discovery.
A skull emerges from the soil, so small that they initially think it must be from a child. To anthropologists, skulls and bones are like road maps. They contain a lot of information if you know how to read them.
As scientists continue excavating, they find something even stranger.
As more bones emerge from the soil, it becomes clear that this skeleton is from a fully mature individual, probably a female, that stood only 3.5 feet tall and weighed somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 pounds.
This is an ancient human, but it's not like anything they've seen before anywhere else. Then they find more skeletons, about 100 fossils, about 13 individuals, and they're all the same size. They're all tiny.
But not everything about these ancient humans is tiny.
There is no sign of disease or deformity, though she does have rather large feet. She appears to be a healthy, well-proportioned individual, and as more and more of these small, large-footed skeletons come to light, people start calling them hobbits.
Is it possible that hobbits once truly existed?
This is an unknown branch of the human family tree that scientists name Homo floresiensis, after the island on which they were discovered.
This is an incredible find, but what would cause something like this to happen? The leading theory is island dwarfism.
Island dwarfism argues that large animals, isolated on islands, evolve smaller bodies because they have limited resources and no larger predators to defend themselves against.
Historically, island dwarfism can lead to unusual permutations, from giant rats to tiny elephants, and even, perhaps, hobbit-like humans.
We may never know all the secrets of these ancient little humans,